Hey, welcome back once again, everybody. I am Colin Weaver. These are the IT Dojo CISSP questions of the day, where I come at you each and every time with not one, but two, yes, two questions to help you as you continue to study and prep for your CISSP exam. Let's go. All right, question number one today is, you have been allocated a /28 prefix of publicly routable internet IP addresses. You have 2,000 people in your company, and you need to provide internet connectivity to all of them, which includes desktops, mobile devices, and Windows and Linux servers that you have at your shop. My question to you is, which of these choices, given that list that's going to appear right over there, is going to be the best solution for you to go in and accomplish that? Give those choices a look. Give it some thought. When you think you got the right answer, after clicking pause or whatever it is you need to do, click on play again, and we can talk it through. All right, let's take it from the top. How about we do network address translation, NAT, configuring static translations, and that is a giant negative. A /28 prefix is only going to give you 14 public IP addresses for your use, and you got 2,000 employees. So do the math on that static translation. You can't translate 2,000 addresses statically to 14 addresses. So no, static NAT is not going to be the solution for you. Next guy up on the list says do PAT, which is port address translation. And the extra options say that you're going to translate the MAC addresses, the IP addresses, as well as the TCP and UDP ports. And that is a giant negative as well, because while port address translation does translate the IP address and the TCP or UDP port number, it does not translate the MAC address. So that answer is not correct. Let's keep going. Next choice up is to use an HTTP proxy. Man, so close. It would be true that an HTTP proxy would accomplish all of your objectives if all you did was HTTP traffic. However, we said that we needed every kind of device to be able to do pretty much whatever it needs to do on the internet, and HTTP is not the only kind of protocol that's going to need to pass out to the internet. So an HTTP proxy alone isn't going to satisfy your needs. So no, I would not choose that answer. All right, next candidate says, hey, let's do network address translation again, except this time let's do static translations from a pool. No. You got static NAT, which is just a one-to-one translation, which is typically pre-mapped by the administrator of the device. It doesn't make things really any better if you're going to do static translations dynamically from a pool. The pool, in this case, still only supports 14 publicly routable IP addresses, and you have 2,000 nodes that need connectivity. So no matter what, you're not going to have a static NAT solution, be it dynamic or pre-mapped, that's going to solve your needs here. So no, that's not going to be a good choice either. All right, I'm liking the next one, port address translation. With port address translation, or PAT, which in all honesty, most people call NAT, but when they say NAT, the overwhelming majority of the time they mean PAT. You're going to translate the IP address, which is layer 3, as well as the TCP or UDP port number at layer 4. And very much so, when you do that, Cisco, for instance, calls it overloading when you do port address translation. You're going to be able to go in and take those 2,000 nodes and translate them to one or more of those publicly routable internet IP addresses by translating the entire socket. You're going to translate TCP and UDP traffic, as well as the IP address and the port number, and that level of granularity is going to allow your translation device to keep track of all the individual translations that it's done for all of the internal IP addresses that you're making use of. So that very much is the right answer that you're looking for. Now, the last answer choice on here says to use a SOCKS proxy or a SOCKS 5 proxy. That answer is pretty close to being right, and the only reason that I wouldn't choose it if I were given choices like this on an exam is not because using a SOCKS 5 proxy really isn't a viable solution. There are certainly ways that could be done. More than anything, it's just, one, it's not really the norm these days. More people seem to use address translators than SOCKS or SOCKS 5. More so, it's not easy. Say, to use iOS as an example from Apple, it's not easy to go in and do SOCKS 5 stuff with an Apple device. It is, however, possible for you to go into the Wi-Fi settings after you connect to a wireless LAN and do proxy stuff through that. HTTP proxy, but not SOCKS 5 proxy. So while SOCKS 5 is a potential answer, when you look at the diversity of devices and the extra steps that may be required in order for you to go in and make use of SOCKS, It's just really not the commonplace solution that we would see today, which given these choices, that makes port address translation, which is translating the IP address and the TCP or UDP port numbers, the most appropriate choice given this list. Okay, well, let's jump into the next question. Next question is given the answer choices that I list for you right there, which of them are security concerns for a DHCP implementation? And what I want you to do is I want you to pick 3 of them that are going to be security concerns that you have. So look at those answer choices, click pause, give it some thought, and when you're ready, click play again and we can talk it all through. All right, first one up on the list says that the attacker exhausts the pool of available addresses. And this is a legitimate concern. If you have a legitimate DHCP server in your environment, it, for the most part, is going to give an IP address to anybody who asks for one. So it's perfectly plausible that an attacker could just generate random MAC addresses and send DHCP discover package in IP version 4 and obtain all of the IP addresses by using a different MAC address spoofed each time to just exhaust the pool of available addresses. And if the DHCP server has leased out addresses to all of these forged MAC addresses, it suddenly no longer has any more IP addresses to offer because the attacker has gone in and exhausted the pool. So yes, that is very much a legitimate concern. Keep in mind that for an attacker to do that, they have to be on the network segment. I can't do that junk to your network from my house. So I'm going to have to gain control of a computer that's on one of your network segments at your office in order for me to have any chance of being able to go in and do any kind of pool exhaustion stuff. So that really is sort of an internal attack concern that you would have to go in and deal with and address. So that is one of the answer choices. Let's keep going. The next choice on the list says that MAC address assignment can be spoofed by the DHCP server or by an attacking DHCP server. No. DHCP servers don't assign MAC addresses. DHCP servers assign IP addresses as well as all the other wonderful little things that somebody might like to use along with their IP address, like the location of a router, a DNS server. You want to kick it old school, we can throw a Win server into that, maybe some NTP related stuff. There's a big giant list of things that DHCP servers can give out, but giving out MAC addresses is not one of those things. So that is not the correct answer choice. All right, next one says that you've got an attacker who sets up a DHCP server, a rogue DHCP server, and configures that DHCP server to use the same address pool, the same range of addresses as your legitimate DHCP server, and puts it on a remote network segment. No. When he puts that rogue DHCP server on a remote network segment, it's not going to do anything to this local network segment. So if an attacker were to be able to get a DHCP server onto the local segment and configure the same pool, or really any pool, then that could become problematic. But the fact that somebody puts a DHCP server on a remote segment isn't going to do it. The reason for that is that the overwhelming majority of DHCP related traffic, in terms of the way the nodes behave, is all going to be broadcast based. And so it's going to be confined or constrained to the local LAN segment where the traffic is being communicated, and the DHCP server will then offer that up. Now, I won't get into the more nuanced configurations of that, dealing with proxies and other kinds of things of that nature, but suffice to say, somebody putting a DHCP server on a remote network segment isn't going to cause any problems for the DHCP server that you have on the local LAN segment. So no, that is not one of the answer choices that we're looking for. Okay, next one on the list says that you have a legitimate DHCP server, but it has an addresses that it's configured to give out from its pool that overlap with nodes on the segment that have statically assigned addresses. This can absolutely cause an issue in the form of an IP conflict. Now, some of you are probably looking at that going, wait, no, my DHCP server checks before it gives out an address. That's true, but not all DHCP servers do that. The more normal approach to this is that if you're going to be using static IP addresses on a local segment in addition to DHCP assigned IP addresses, then you will exclude either by eliminating them from the range or the pool of addresses that the DHCP server is going to give out, or by configuring static exclusions or reservations, or you can do it with reservations or exclusions, that don't give those particular IP addresses out. Because not all DHCP servers are going to check that the address is not in use prior to offering it to somebody who sends out a DHCP discover packet. So keep that in mind. All right, the next option, how about when a DHCP server gives out rogue MX record information? No. DHCP servers don't give out MX record information. DNS servers give out that information. Now, the DHCP server tells your client where the DNS server is, and then your client queries DNS to locate MX, Or your client may not even do that. Your client may go in and use something different internally, like Outlook or something like that. But too much information. Suffice to say right here, no, DHCP servers do not give out MX records. That leaves us with the last option, which is the third one that we're looking for, where you have a rogue DHCP server on the segment that gives out good addresses but an incorrect gateway. That's good old-fashioned either A, denial of service, or B, man-in-the-middle stuff that we could go in and do. If I could get myself onto your network segment and set up a DHCP server and have it give out legitimate IP addresses for that segment, which I would like to say also is going to include DNS information and things like that, but I'm giving out legitimate IP addresses, but I give you a different default gateway. That's going to trick those nodes into forwarding traffic that is trying to leave the local LAN segment to the other default gateway, this rogue default gateway that I've set up. And I, as the attacker, could then have a device configured to forward that traffic to the legitimate default gateway so that it can actually continue on its journey, which makes me a man in the middle. Or I could configure that traffic to simply be discarded, which means I'm performing a denial of service attack, except for things on the local LAN segment. So yeah, that is a legitimate concern. Anytime somebody can get a rogue DHCP server onto your network, you got a problem. So, but those three things are certainly things that we would consider when dealing with DHCP related security issues. All right, it's done. 2 more questions down. Hope you dug them. Hope they help you as you continue your studies. If you need more information on anything that was in the questions, please check the links down below. I put links for everything down there for you to serve as references. And that's it. See you next time. Bye.